According to the National Alliance of Mental Health, around 80% of college-age students feel overwhelmed or stressed because of school and their other responsibilities. About 1 out of 4 of these students have a mental illness, and about 40% of them won't get help for it. Now, in my class survey, I asked students how they felt about school and how they felt about stress. And most people said they felt about moderately about their performance in school. But when it came to the stress, their levels were about 7 or 8 out of 10, which is super high and has a massive effect on how you do at school and how you are able to function in your normal life. Now, a lot of us struggle with mental illnesses, stress, and just general responsibilities. And because of this, we need a strong mental health support system. Mental health and student habits run hand in hand. Take, in fact, movies. Now, most movies depict college-age students as either super sleep-deprived and hyped up on coffee studying for an exam, or they show us excessively drinking. Now, these two negative habits can have a big effect on things like anxiety and depression. Now, one of those examples that I mentioned before was sleep. Now, according to the National Sleep Foundation, around 70 to 96% of students are getting less than 8 hours of sleep. In my survey, I asked this same question, and people answered that they got around 5 to 7 hours of sleep a night. However, almost everybody said that they still felt tired after their full night of sleep. Now, why is this important? Sleep deprivation can have a big effect on your studies as well as your daily life. Things like memory and learning abilities, as well as response times and your own immune system can be slowed massively because of sleep deprivation. Now, one of those other examples that I gave was drinking. Now, according to the NIH, binge drinking in college-age students is a big issue. Around 2 out of 3 students out of the 60% of students that drink a month binge drink. Now, according to the NIH, binge drinking is a blood alcohol count of around 0.8. This is about 4 drinks for women and 5 drinks for men in under 2 hours. Now, why is binge drinking such a big deal? There's around 1,800 deaths every year, 700,000 assaults, and 97,000 sexual assaults every year in college-age students because of drinking. Now, you might be asking, well, what does this have to do with mental health? Mixing stress, sleeplessness, and binge drinking can have massive effects on the rates of anxiety, depression, and even suicide. Now, according to Psychology Today, around 57% of college-age women have anxiety, and around 27% of college-age men have depression. And around 9.4% of students have thought about suicide. This is huge numbers. And it's obviously a massive issue. And it can be kind of overwhelming to think, well, how do we fix this without completely overhauling how school is today? And one of these big solutions is having a safe mental health facility that's accessible to students and is preferably on campus, such as the one that we have at ISU. Now, this clear solution, mental health facilities, have to have about 3 things to make them really successful. They need to be safe and unjudgmental. Now, this can be an issue when you have something that's associated with the school. Students can feel some kind of repercussion if they come in with a problem like drinking and they're a minor. Getting rid of this fear is vital to having these facilities be successful. Another step that needs to be taken is having some kind of financial aid available. We want to make sure we're meeting all students' needs, no matter their level of income. Now, whether this be a sliding scale or some kind of just free mental health care. The last step is education. We want to make sure that the staff and the students are all aware of suicide prevention and just any kind of awareness for mental illness, just to make sure that nobody's falling through the cracks. Now, this is a big solution, but there's also an additional one. And this is teaching students how to cope with this stress and how to get better sleep or how to be a safe drinker. We can't expect them to not have these things, but we should be able to expect them to at least cope with them, especially before it turns into a mental illness or an actual issue. Now in my survey, I asked students how they felt about their coping with stress. And most people felt like at this point in their life that they had a moderate level of coping skills. Not great, but okay. I also asked them 2 additional questions, and they're things that help me cope with stress. And I was just curious if they were things that other people used. One of those things was exercise. And most people said they got an okay amount, but for the most part they were just too busy. The other question I asked is how much alone time they were getting, or for me, that meant doing something that I enjoyed or loved. And almost everybody said they did next to nothing, that they just didn't have time. And I understand that. Being a student, you're very busy. Now, we can't expect this lifestyle to change, so we need to make sure that healthcare is accessible. I don't foresee sleepless nights or stress or drinking to change in college-age students. It's just not reasonable. However, if we have a support system available, we're able to change the rates of suicide, depression, and anxiety. Otherwise, we could see the opposite effect. And a big part of this is making sure that our facilities are funded, whether that be through the school or outside sources. We need to make sure that these facilities remain accessible to all students and that people feel safe to go to them. Thank you.